Today, we'll be talking about population density and explain all of the very low population density. The Earth, because of its varying climates, all changes upon population and population per square kilometer. There are lots of places that are extremely densely populated. For example, Europe, India, and a lot of China, Korea, Japan, and of course Java, New York, and some parts of the Middle East, and some parts of Africa. But there's a lot of area where practically nobody lives. Where are these places? I can get a better map. Here, this is a better quality map. So, where are the places that nobody lives? The places that absolutely zero people want to live in. So, we'll be going over each by place, starting with northern Canada and Alaska. Literally, nobody lives in this part of Canada. So, Canada has been considered. A lot of people love Canada. A lot of people love the country. It's considered. But you would think that it'll be like the United States. Oh, a lot of people live in one part of the United States, but the real reason why nobody lives in this very northern part of Canada, and of course, and most of Alaska, is because it's very cold in this part of Canada. The only places where people really live is around the cities, and there's not many of them in this part of Canada. Same thing with Quebec and Ontario. Most of the people who live in Canada live along the southern part of Canada in a small little area. Next is Central North America, basically. So it's mostly because it's cold, and it's not a very good place to farm as well. So a lot of parts of Kansas, and then the other part, most of it is like mountainous, desert, and not much. Mostly people are around like the rivers or some major population area. Mexico is pretty densely populated, but the only underpopulated areas is in the desert areas. Next is this little part of Panama. You would think that they would want to connect Panama through North and South America, but it's this small jungle that basically blocks you from moving from both sides. Next is basically South America. With the exception of the coastal parts of Brazil, most of South America is covered with rainforest, dense jungles. There's also the Andes Mountains, which again, surprisingly, a lot of people live in the Andes Mountains, but there's a lot of jungle, rainforest, and a really bad terrain for people to live in. Most people who live in South America live alongside the coast, live alongside this area, and Argentina is very densely, sparsely populated as well. Most people live in the Buenos Aires area, and a lot of this part of Argentina is like really cold. A lot of forest, a lot of desert, shrubland, and really just not favorable climates for humans to live in. Antarctica, well, of course, Antarctica is basically a gigantic ice desert, so we don't have to go further. Here, it is basically a giant desert, basically here. Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa, a giant desert. Here, rainforest, and then there's this part of Africa, part of Central African Republic. Some parts of Africa are very underpopulated, like here. Well, a lot of this is like rainforest, like a very untouched rainforest. Like literally nobody lives in Gabon and Congo. Nobody lives in this part of Central African Republic and South Sudan. And of course, no one lives in Sahara Desert. This is obvious here. No one lives in Sahara Desert except for, of course, the Nile River along the coasts and in Morocco. Next is Greenwind and Iceland. Well, Greenwind is very cold, a gigantic ice sheet. Same with Iceland, it's very cold. Why would anyone want to live in a very cold place? Same with Svalbard. Scotland as well, it's really cold. It's really mountainous, really, bad places to live. Really harsh environments, basically. And Europe is pretty densely populated. And then we have the Nordic countries, because it's just cold. Nobody wants to live in a cold place, okay? Everybody lives around the coasts, which is where all the warmer places are, but in the interior is mountainous and cold, and it's not a really good place. Well, of course, we have infamously Russia. Russia is known for being cold And that's why Russia, nobody basically lives in Siberia. This part of Japan, actually, that's part of Russia. And then we have Tibet. Well, Tibet's like very cold, very high up. And why would anyone want to live in a place like that? It's it's mountainous, cold, and you'd think, oh yeah, it'll be warm because a lot of these parts of the area is warm, but no, the Himalaya Mountains basically makes the Tibet very cold, very high up. Mongolia, Gobi Desert, no one wants to live in a desert that's cold. Kazakhstan and all these countries here, a very big desert area. Here, a very big steppe desert area. Nobody really wants to live in those areas either. So, next is, of course, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and, of course, Oman, giant desert, basically here. This part of Borneo, that's a jungle. Papua New Guinea, the Guinea Island, basically a giant jungle. And, of course, Australia. Well, you know why no one wants to live in Australia. There's all those dangerous animals, bugs, insects, and, they're very scary spiders and very scary, jellyfish. No one wants to live in a place with a jellyfish that can kill you within like an hour. Okay? You gotta be out of your freaking mind if you want to live in a place like that. But, 25 million people still live in Australia anyways. And even then, Australia is mostly just a gigantic desert that really nobody wants to live in. So, yeah. And then New Zealand, well, that's a big mystery. Maybe it's because New Zealand's so unimportant to the world that nobody lives in New Zealand. Because New Zealand has, like, more farmable land than Australia. But New Zealand's very mountainous and has, like, a lot of, like, big forests and stuff. Maybe that's New Zealand is just, like, the environment, And that's why, that's explaining all the places that really nobody wants to live. There's some other places like northern Somalia, parts of Kenya, parts of Zambia. Northern Maine, very sparsely unpopulated. But, in the world, I think the least sparsely populated place, of course, has to be Siberia and northern Canada. And, of course, it's how it is. Because really, who wants... And then, of course, let's not forget Australia. I think the most least sparsely populated places, of course, Australia and Greenland. And, of course, Antarctica, because nobody lives in Antarctica. And even then, there are places like, there are population density differences in parts of the country, as well. For example, Syria and Iraq. There's parts of Syria and Iraq that are very, very unpopulated. Parts of Iran that are very, very unpopulated. Parts of Afghanistan, of course, Tajikistan. But we don't have to go through every single place in the world of why nobody wants to live there. Because, of course, there's going to be places where people gravitate towards population centers and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's basically it about this video. Goodbye.